Hey everyone, my name is John Prue, and today I'm going to talk about a very important topic. Students often ask me, how do I accompany a singer or an instrumentalist, other than just playing the basic chords? And today I'm going to show you 5 tips on how to do that. I'm going to teach you about some different fills and some other things that you can add in to really lift the performance and to enhance the musical experience. So let's get started. So some of you may have noticed that the song I was playing at the very beginning was Misty, and it's a great standard. It's a beautiful ballad, and so I'm going to use that song in the context of talking about how to use accompaniment in a way that will really lift the performance. Tip number 1 is to set up the player or singer with a chord that fits the melody note of the pickup note. So for example, the song Misty is in the key of E flat major. The first chord is a B flat 7, and the melody is da da. That's the pickup melody that goes into the first chord, which is E flat major. And so if I just saw a B flat 7, and oftentimes piano students will say, well, I'm just going to add any kind of chord extension I want, and I'll play something like this, right? And you hear this da da. You say, oh wait, why does that not work? If you look at this voicing, the one I chose just randomly without looking at the melody, I played a sharp 5. But if you look at the melody, da da, do you hear that? G natural is the 13th. So it's really important when you're setting up the pickup notes to a ballad. In this case, I'm kind of doing it rubato or out of time. You want to make sure that the accompaniment chord matches the chord of the pickup. So I have to do some kind of a 13 chord, and so I chose a B flat 13 flat 9 chord, which looks like this. Here's the root, 7, flat 9, 3, 13. Also looks like a G major triad, by the way, over B flat. And so you can just do this little arpeggio, and then putting their note on top, the B flat, then they're going to hear their note as well. Look at me, and then you're ready to go. So that's one way to do it subtly, is to give the singer their first note in a subtle way by very high up there on the piano. They hear that, look at me, and it doesn't conflict with the chord. In fact, it fits beautifully with the chord. So that's tip number 1. Always look at the melody and try to harmonize the chord according to what the melody is. That's very important, and it's also something that you can use in reharmonization as well. All right, so tip number 2, using tension and release on held notes or fills. And this is something that I love to do because sure, it's nice if you just played the one chord, right? Look at me, and just stay there. But it feels like it wants to do something else, and there's some different things that you can do whenever you have stagnant harmony for, say, a measure or 2. In this case, we have E flat major for 1 measure. And on the document, you'll see I wrote the changes of the original changes up above and the chords I'm using or substituting below. So the melody is the major 7. That's important to note. It's an E flat major 7, and the melody is the major 7. And whenever the melody is the major 7 of a major chord, you can use a diminished, E flat diminished chord with a major 7. And there's a lot of tension in that chord, isn't there? That then you can resolve to E flat major. So it's that tension and release. And in this example, besides just resolving this way, we go doing these half-step minor thirds. And it creates almost like a string part that you would hear in an orchestra behind a melody, right? It's not just held notes. You hear all this other kind of, almost like a counter melody happening. So we have that, look at me. Now for the next thing, instead of going the typical, I changed some of the quality here in the chords. If I'm going from B flat minor to E flat 7 to A flat major, you've heard that chord progression before. That's a 2, 5, 1 in the key of A flat, right? So sometimes when you have a minor chord like this, minor 7 chord, you can go from the minor 7 to a minor major 7 and then to the 5 chord. But here, instead of going right to the third of the chord, I do a sus. Again, suspended means that the 4th is suspended and then resolves to the 3rd. So what we're doing is kind of delaying 5 as much as possible, and I love to do that in accompanying, is like not giving the 5 away too soon. So we go from the 2, B flat minor 7, B flat minor major 7, E flat 7 sus, to E flat 9. It also creates this really cool inner line in the tenor part. Da, 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 da. So there's movement within the voicing itself that really, I think, helps the melody, enhances the melody. So we have this. And then once we get to the A flat major, instead of just stopping on A flat major, okay, we have like, a whole measure of A flat major. What can we do? And in this case, I almost treated this like more of a pop voicing, which is called add 2. So if I have an A flat major and I add the 2, I have a B flat in there. And so we have this add 2 and then root and then a lower neighbor and then resolving to the root. So we have this da, 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 da. They also call that kind of like a 2-1 suspension. And again, it's that tension, release, tension, release. So we have the whole thing, starting at measure 3, would be, look at me. Da, 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 da. And the reason I'm stopping on beat 3 is because the melody has the pickup. Da, 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 da. Do you hear that? So instead of going, playing some other fill, I don't want to get in the way of the vocal. So I think it's also important to put a fill in the space, but then stop when there's a pickup in the melody, because you want the focus to always to be on the melody. Your accompaniment should just be in the spaces, but let the melody soar. So tip number 3 is kind of a segue from the last one, very similar in that you're adding moving inner voices with chord substitutions. And so what I mean by that is the traditional chords of this section of the tune is A flat minor 7 to D flat 7, E flat major 7 to C minor 7, right? So that's that. Sounds perfectly nice, right? But again, as in the previous example, when I mentioned if you have a minor chord, you can either go minor and then to the major 7 and then back down, or you can start with the minor minor major 7 like this, and then go down to the minor 7 and then resolve to the D flat 7. So again, you have this kind of tenor line that's going da, da, da. I also think of it as oftentimes in Latin music where you hear this kind of like this kind of da, 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 da. It's that same kind of idea is going, but instead of starting on the A flat, it's starting on the major 7. So we have, again, creating that moving part. So even though the melody's going da, 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 at the same time you're hearing this. So there's always something kind of moving with the melody. So in bar 7, there's an E flat major 7, which is the 1 chord, which is the way that the real book has it, right? But there's a chord that you can substitute for the 1 chord, which is the 3 chord. So if you're in the key of E flat, you can substitute the 3 chord. Now why would that be? Well, if you look at an E flat major 7 and you take away the root, you actually have a 3 chord, don't you? But as you see on the document here, it's not a G minor 7, it's a G7, which is major, not minor. Well, how can that be? There's no G major in the key of E flat. Well, that's because in jazz, which is so great, is that you can take the 6 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, and you can change the qualities. You can change the quality of any chord, really, as long as it works. So in this case, instead of doing G minor 7 for the 3, we're doing G13 or G dominant. And again, because I love these moving lines, I have a 13 here, and then it goes to the flat 13, and then when I get to the C minor, we have this da, da. Again, that's a C minor 9, and then C minor. It's that 2-1 suspension that I did earlier. So we have this da, 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 da. And again, that works great with the melody. If you look at the melody above, we have da, 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 da. So this is how the whole thing would sound, starting at measure 6. So we have da, 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 da. So it almost sounds like a string quartet or something, doesn't it? Because we have all these sort of moving lines that are very much suspensions, and we have these inner voices that are moving and chord substitutions. It's really beautiful. So the fourth tip we're going to talk about is when the melody has a 4-3 suspension in it. And what I mean by a 4-3 suspension is in Misty, it goes, I get misty and too much in. Do you hear that E flat there? That's the fourth. It's a suspended note. So if I had just a regular B flat 7 here, but I'm playing this, do you hear that? That's kind of clashes, right? So what I like to do when I'm accompanying is to actually play the suspension with the singer or instrumentalist and then resolve to the third. So for example, we'd have F minor 7. Now it starts with the third, doesn't it? So it's B flat 9, but instead of just staying there, I'm going to go with the singer or instrumentalist on the E flat, which is the sus, and then resolve to the third, and I put the flat 9 in there. So we have this 3, sus, 3. Here's the way it would sound if I didn't do that. Da, 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 da. Right? It's a little bit harsher on the ears, but if you go with the singer instrumentalist and play this da, da, da. So again, it would sound like this, the whole thing. Da, 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 da. Really beautiful, and again, it helps the melody in that it's going with the melody as opposed to creating tension between the melody and the chords. Tip number 5, add a sequential melody on a turnaround. In this case, a 3-6-2-5 turnaround. Turnaround just means that it's at the end of a phrase. Usually, if you're doing it's ending on 1. It'll go 1, 6, 2, 5. But again, as I mentioned earlier, you can substitute 3 for 1. So sometimes you'll see 3, 6, 2, 5. And whenever you have a held melody note, this is a great place to add in a fill. And so when you're adding fills, one thing I love to do is to add what's called a sequence, which just means that you're taking a simple phrase like this. That's the sequence, and then I do it again, but instead of going da, the melody goes look at. So I actually played the melody there. So I go look at me. So I kind of join the melody on the very last eighth notes there. Also, look at the 3 chord here. The 3 chord, if you're looking at the chords up above, the standard changes would be G minor 7, C7, F minor 7, B flat 7, right? But here, instead of just having a minor 7, I put a flat 5 in the 3 chord, which again adds another color, right? And we can do that as jazz players, which I love. So we have this. Now, instead of just a regular C7, I put in a sharp 9 and a flat 13, flat 9, root 7, which leads to the third of the F minor chord, and then do the same thing on the B flat 7. I do a sharp 9, flat 13, and then flat 9, root, but this is that B flat 13, flat 9 chord, look at me, and then we're back to the top. So it's a great way to add some different melodies that are happening underneath and do something that's kind of sequential, because that also engages the listener if you do something that's familiar and you repeat it. Repetition is a good thing, but it changes color, doesn't it, when you hear this? Because it's different chords. So as you may have seen in the document here, I've laid out the first A section of Misty, with each of these tips being a couple bars of each of the sections. So I thought now I would just play the whole A section for you, so you can look along in your document to see how these tips come together. And then I'm going to continue and go into the bridge. You don't have this information, but you can just listen, and I'll try to incorporate some of these same tips on the bridge. So here we go. Look at me. Thanks again for joining me for these quick tips on how to accompany yourself. I hope that I've helped you to learn about some of these different techniques and how to use them for yourself, how to accompany yourself, other singers, instrumentalists. And I hope that you'll take this knowledge and apply it to different songs. It could be a ballad, it could be a swing tune, really anything you could use these techniques on. And if you like what you hear, please leave a comment in the comment section and keep me posted in the comments about how you're progressing. Would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks again. Take care, everybody.
Hey, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the lesson, be sure to check out pianowithjonny.com. We have over 1,000 step-by-step lessons for all playing levels, where you'll learn your favorite songs, styles, and how to improvise at the piano. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.